Warning. The Outsider's Edge contains strong opinions, unconventional views, and contrarian stances. Listen, if you dare.
Hey, yo!
Everybody, I'd like to thank you for listening to another episode of The Outsider's Edge, but we got something a little special for you guys today. First, it's your boy Rance, aka Ray Cash. Let me introduce my partner in crime, Mr. Carl Irvin. What's happening, Carl? How you doing?
I'm claustrophobic because I'm on Skype and there's a lot of people in my window screen. But other than that, I'm great. So go ahead and introduce the people that are guests because I'm not that important.
Well, I mean, like your name is on the damn marquee of the podcast.
They're here for you. Let's be honest.
Well, thank you. And you're right, but thank you. Let me also introduce my other partner in crime, my golden lovers brethren, Kyle, Mr. Kyle Morris. What's happening, man?
How you doing, man? I don't know, Carl. I feel like they're just as much here for me as they are. I'm just a cocky motherfucker.
Well, everyone needs. Rance always has to have someone to keep his ass in line. That's part of the problem. Because otherwise, if you let him get off the rails too much, it becomes like nobody would listen to us anymore because he'll be screaming at everybody. I know how you are. We know how you are, Rance. That's why I'm here. That's why Kyle's there.
To say this. He'll say all that to say this.
Yeah, that's right. That's his line. I say all that to say this. If we ever make shirts one day, that's the first one that's going up.
I don't appreciate that, guys, but okay. But we have a special collaborative or extravaganza episode for you because we have our brothers from across the pond. We got the homies Ricky and Clive with us. What's happening?
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Yeah, just to say, I'm here for Carl. I'm not here for Rance.
That's right. We're thinking about that.
And I'm deleting you off WhatsApp as we speak. So, to give you some background, I have some stuff going on personally in my life that I thought I wasn't going to be able to be here. Ricky and Clive was already scheduled to be on the show regardless. Kyle, who of course is basically the third member of the show and always is willing to step in for us, kind of took over for me tonight, and Carl decided he wanted to record this week. So it just happened to be all five of us. So yeah, this is going to be a clusterfuck. I know this, y'all know this, but we're gonna try to get through it. So I got my glasses on because I'm moderating today, so I have to look presentable. You guys can't see it, but well, listening, but they can. So I guess we'll start with the first topic. The biggest news of the week has to be that finally WWE has decided to give and sanction their first ever all women's pay-per-view. It's called Evolution, a word that Triple H seems to use a lot. But it's going to be a regular pay-per-view in October. On Long Island, I believe it's going to be at. And the Raw Women's Championship is going to be on the line. SmackDown Women's Championship is going to be on the line. NXT Women's Championship is going to be on the line. I believe the NXT UK Women's Championship is going to be on the line. The Mae Young Classic Finals are going to be there, and it's going to be like a celebration of everything women in wrestling, as Stephanie put it, then, now, forever, which is the tagline. So I'm going to start with the sleepiest of the bunch. Ricky, what do you think, man? Are you with it? Do you like it? Do you have any problems with it? Tell me what you think about Evolution.
I'm all in.
Was that on purpose? Did you say all in on purpose?
Yeah, it was. My only reservation about it was I was hoping it didn't make the announcement in the aftermath of the Greatest Royal Rumble, because to me, if they'd done that, it would have been a case of maybe trying to save face because of the amount of backlash they got.
Sure.
So it would have almost come across like we don't think we deserve this. We're only doing it just to make it look like we are saving face. But no, I'm completely on board with it. I hope they give us some proper storylines going into it, and they're not just going to throw everyone and anyone on the card. But yeah, my thoughts are I'm actually really looking forward to it. It's overdue. But let's say my main thing about it is don't just throw anyone and everyone on it. Like give us proper storylines going into it, and give us matches that we genuinely want to see and care about.
Well, you're not in, Carl, so tell me what you think.
Well, I do agree with him. I was kind of thinking about what you were saying about how it kind of looks like, maybe they're trying to save face. I think part of that, like, I think it was smart to wait because
it looks better.
Well, it does, but the thing about with the Greatest Royal Rumble was they took a lot of heat for that, and I think it would actually have been just if you had just gone right to the women's pay-per-view immediately. I think all of a sudden you're looking at something where it's like, okay, you guys are just throwing them a bone, and because in reality, if you think about it, it's all been leading up to this anyway. It's like he said, it's a long overdue, but you kind of saw this, you've kind of seen this for a while coming, and it kind of started with the women doing more matches that they had never done before, for example, the Hell in a Cell match and the Royal Rumble, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we all saw it coming, but when they did that, they didn't do it like 1 week after the next. They took time in between each step going up the ladder to getting to this point, which is why I think that it's good that they waited as long as they did post Greatest Royal Rumble. But I do agree with you that I don't want them to just throw random matches on the card. I know that they will because I figure they will because they're going to have a lot of the legendary women on the show as well. I'm thinking maybe some kind of battle royal or something. I don't know, but
they seem to like battle royals on shows like this. So maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm with you though, but it seems like they've got a good outline. Because if you look at the matches that we know for sure are going to be on the card, the championship matches and the Mae Young Classic finals. So they're going to have a good core of matches with stories behind them. So if they do throw a few on there that are just kind of like, hey, here's a battle royal, sure, I can live with that.
Probably maybe a SmackDown versus Raw tag or something like that.
Something like that could work, yeah. But I think there's going to be a few things that are going to be kind of thrown together because honestly, most WWE pay-per-views have something that's just kind of slapped on there. So it's not really, to me, that won't be that big of a deal.
Kyle, one thing that she mentioned in the announcement was she mentioned upwards of 50 women at the pay-per-view. Do you think that's too many? Do you think they're too worried about the nostalgia factor? Or do you think the nostalgia factor and kind of a thank you to the women past is what's necessary for this show? Because you know how we are as fans. We're very critical of things, and we want things to stay extremely current. So do you think that the nostalgia is going to be too much for this show?
Well, first of all, it's almost like you read my mind because I was just thinking about how they had announced 50 women for the show.
Golden Lovers, brother, we're here.
But I did a little background research, you guys know I'm a teacher, so I'm all about doing the research. I did a little background research. If you include all of the women on Raw, all of the women on SmackDown, all of the women in NXT, and all the women in NXT UK, there's 43 women on the roster.
And these are just people on TV.
And these are just the women that are actively employed by the company right now.
Okay.
On all three rosters. So there are, realistically, some of those women might not make the show. We don't know what's going to happen between now and then. And sure. A couple of the people who are not yet signed that I think they're signed, but they're not on a brand that I think will make the show are Deonna Purrazzo and Io Shirai.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the Mae Young finals, what people are thinking it will be.
Yeah, I fully expect both of them will be on the show, but they're not technically on a brand yet. So you're looking at like 45 women that they employ actively full-time right now. So realistically, they might only need a handful of legends to come in.
Well, I think
And
we
That's
can
fair.
expect Trish. I think we can expect Lita, and we can definitely expect the Bellas because they want to come back anyway. They're just looking for the right time to come back. Anybody that you would like to see that makes sense. And when I say makes sense, I'm like, like that can actually wrestle a competent match.
I got two that I would like to see. Molly Holly and
Yeah.
Molly Holly and Victoria.
Okay, I
would
can see that.
see both of them come back. I want Victoria to come back, and for no other reason than the Widow's Peak is one of the most badass finishing moves.
Fire. Absolutely.
I think we could see real quick before anybody else jumps in. I want to say I think we'll see potentially Beth Phoenix, and I would love to see actually. I don't know how plausible it is, but I would love to see Lay Cool, especially considering you got the Iconics. You could have some kind of little thing there because of how they were all so in love with each other or whatever. But I think that would be cool. But I don't think it'll happen, but I would like to see that.
I think Layla's the wild card there. Michelle
Layla's
McCool
done. Yeah.
to do it in a heartbeat because she's married to The Undertaker. Layla's the wild card there.
Yeah.
And Layla's married to a former wrestler too, Ricky Ortiz. But she's said numerous times, I think I'm done with my career. I'm very happy. She doesn't
have to be in a match though. She could
be there. That's a good point.
Yeah, like especially if we're doing something with the Iconics. Let's be real. Billie Kay don't need to wrestle. She can be a cheater.
Really? I hope Eva Marie comes back. Can we make that happen? Because she's the legendary. No. Well, how about this? They announce her, but she doesn't make it. How about that?
No.
Her and Kelly in the main event.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
That'll put butts in the seats. Brian, Clive, I wanted to come to you last because on Ricky and Clive yesterday, you actually, while you're for it, and I think all of us, most people who are wrestling fans are absolutely for this, but you did have some worries and concerns. So would you mind saying them here?
The concerns were basically, one of the things that I was thinking of, you said at the start there, celebration. And over the last 3 years, we've had a lot of celebratory moments for the women's divisions on both brands and NXT as well. First ever Royal Rumble, main event, ladder match, a lot of firsts. So there has definitely been a celebratory feel. And while it's fine that they're going to celebrate with the all-women pay-per-view, I hope it's more of a case of celebrating good booking, good matches, good storylines going in. So if that makes sense, that the guy said it earlier, there could be a few matches thrown together like battle royals or something, but if we've got storylines going in, that's 3 months we've got now. There's plenty of time to get things going. One of the things off the top of my head there was you could, it'd be hard to shoehorn in, but you could maybe get some sort of interaction between both sets of the four horsewomen.
That's probably going to happen.
Don't know if it's probable, but it is possible.
Well, Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke, who are the other two members of the Four Horsewomen, not only have they officially signed with NXT, but today's Thursday. Tonight they're making their official debut at the Largo Live event. So It's very possible. I'm not saying a 4-on-4 match might happen, but some type of backstage segment or clash is very possible.
So I was just thinking what you were asking me about, what I was saying on the Ricky and Clive show. If this ends up a flop, I really hope it doesn't, but people will immediately go to the mindset that this is a flop because it's women's wrestling and they've got their own show, when it should realistically be it's a flop because just like quite a few of the pay-per-views we've had this year, the creative's not been great, match outcomes haven't been great. So
that's a criticism of WWE as a whole, sure.
Yeah, so I'd rather it was the WWE creative team that were criticised, not just because it's women wrestling.
Well, that's a very good point, because I'm sure if something goes wrong, they'll dump on the idea of the women getting their show. That'll probably be a lot of the rhetoric. But I have a bigger question that I want to open up to all you guys. You said that you would hope that more than anything it's just well booked, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's more important to you in a first like this? And when I say first, this is the first show of its kind in WWE. We know Shimmer and Shine exist, and Joshi Wrestling has been around for decades, and we know TNA's had their own things. But for WWE, the big house on the hill, this is the first time they've done anything to this extent. So do you think that it's more important to be a celebration of nostalgia, kind of like the Rumble was, or should they say screw all that and just focus on current stories? Like, what's more important, do you think? I want to start with Ricky, get you back in.
Ooh, I think you can go somewhere right down the middle.
Well, that's the goal, but I mean, what would you prefer personally?
Personally, I'm all about the wrestling. If I'm honest,
Okay.
I can understand if maybe they did want to go down the whole celebratory route, but I feel like it would be, you would make more of a point if you just says these are all women wrestlers, this is what they are capable of, and you just showcase the wrestling talent.
Well, the argument
I
there
have a
is,
feeling. Oh, sorry, you go.
well, I was gonna say the argument to that is, and I want you to finish. I'm gonna go to Carl next. But the argument there is that for the first one, you have all these generations of women: Trish, Lita, Victoria, Mickey, Jacqueline, Ivory, and so on and so forth, Michelle and Layla, and Beth Phoenix, and go down the line, China, rest her soul, who never had a chance to experience something like this. So it's nothing to give them a payday and a visual and a thank you. And some people will say that that's just as important. So what do you say to that?
That's why I think that's the way they'll go. That's why I think you may struggle to get them all on the card if you don't do some sort of Battle Royal Rumble thing. Or so I would just, if they are going to go down that route, like getting us a 20 women Battle Royal, for instance, I just hope that maybe they say the incentive for that would be the winner gets a title shot of their brand.
Something of importance, sure.
That's why I've never really bought into the Andre the Giant, and they had the
You don't
women's
like the
Battle
trophy?
Royal.
You don't like the cute ass trophy?
No, I can pass on that. Just, I feel like if you give us some sort of incentive for them to want to win it and for us to be invested in it, I think that would go a long way.
That's fair. Speaking of Rumbles, Carl, you were one of the biggest proponents of the Women's Rumble.
I was, yeah.
You
And
loved it.
I did. I thought it was better than the men's. And I mean, I thought it was spectacular, really, the way they put it together, the way they structured it.
It was built around nostalgia.
Yeah, it was. But here's the thing about this. Normally I would disagree with you, Ricky, about this, but I'm going to agree with you that the focus here should be on the wrestling. And the reason why I say that is because I have sometimes, and now granted, let's all remember, none of us are women, okay? So we're speaking on what we think. So we have no idea, what they would rather see. But what I think
would be yelling at us right now.
Right. But so here's the way I kind of see it. If you go out there and you turn this into this big celebration, which it should be, but if that's like your main focus, and the end of the night is some brouhaha where we're like, yay, and everyone's throwing their hands up in the air, it's going to feel way too on the nose. Overdone, overkill. Like, we get it. Like, I feel like women are going to be like, yes, thank you. Like, I think just give them a good wrestling show with the storylines built in. They still have your entertainment factor. It's an entertainment company. We know this. But put on good produced matches with well-told stories and a few things that are in there for, that are fun, just like they do at WrestleMania, just like they do at SummerSlam. Treat it like a Big Four. That's the way I think they should do it. Treat it like a Big Four pay-per-view. And make it, those Big Four pay-per-views work because they have something for everybody.
Yeah.
And you've got to do the same here, but I think definitely showcase the wrestling side of this, because for years and years and years, women's wrestling has been dumped on, especially within the WWE, for all the, name a reason people want to dump on it. But the bottom line is, if you focus on the wrestling, I think you will make everyone happy. So I'm with you, Ricky. I think you're right.
Kyle, do you think that there is a fatigue among wrestling fans with all these women celebratory moments and firsts. And now you have to understand why there are so many and why they are so celebrated. But do you think there's fatigue among us as fans?
I don't think it's so much fatigue, because I feel like fatigue implies that people are tired of it. I don't think people are tired of women getting the opportunities. I think people are starting to feel like Carl was just talking about on the nose. A lot of these things are starting to feel a little forced. And some, like the announcement of the women's pay-per-view, I am 100% on board with the women's show. I'm very much excited about the women's show. They drug that shit out for like 20 minutes.
And they mentioned it every segment the rest of the show, both shows.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I think, more where the fatigue comes in. It's not that people are fatigued on a women's show. I think people just feel like they're going so far out of their way to remind you about these events. And I think it's coming from a good place, because they want to put those talents out there and they want to promote it and they want this to be successful. But it's also a fine line between doing that and coming across as a little forced.
Disingenuous a little bit, yeah.
Yes. And to answer the other question on the balance between the wrestling and the nostalgia, I think that this is where, I hate Kevin Dunn because he's a terrible person, but he's great as his job.
Yeah.
This is where those Kevin Dunn video packages should be coming in handy, because a lot of the women legends can't go at the level they used to be able to, for a large number of different reasons. I think back to Lita in the Women's Royal Rumble. I was going to see Lita because she's Lita, but she did a couple of moves, and I was reminded why I am glad that Lita retired.
Yes.
And so I would rather see more things like, let's highlight some of the legendary rivalries. Let's highlight some of the non-bra and panties type stuff from back in the day, some of the legit stuff. And let the girls that are doing it now have more of the ring time. With some of the legends that can.
Sure. Brian, last word, and I'm going to ask one more question about this. We'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. What do you think? Do you think nostalgia, or do you think nostalgia is important? Or since your concern is wrestling, do you even think nostalgia should be a thing?
I thought you were going to ask me another question there. Apologies.
Well, I do have another question after this. Yes.
Okay. Nostalgia has outstayed its welcome on WWE TV for me.
In general.
In general.
Okay.
It was welcome in the Women's Royal Rumble in January, so I do agree. I think it would be okay at first to do it with this upcoming Evolution, but what I'd rather have was if they did the nostalgia stuff and if they played it up with Michael Cole mentioning it every 5 minutes, okay, but I would rather they went into the show with
like
more,
another show.
With more story in mind, or if they left the show with a hot angle, because I was thinking back, see when the Mae Young Classic was on, maybe it was just the social media circles I was reading and stuff like that, but people weren't saying, wow, NXT had a women's only tournament, this is fantastic, wow, how good Shayna Baszler, wow, did you see the Toni Storm Piper Niven match? We were talking about individual moments rather than they had a women's wrestling show. That's how I felt it was anyway. Another example was the last women standing match between Nikki Cross and Asuka, where it was just a case of this has turned into a very quick blood feud. It wasn't. This is the first ever last women standing match. They were talking about just the story. So nostalgia is fine to a certain extent, but if this is going to be a regular thing going forward, and if it does become an unofficial part of the Big Four, Big Five family, then the nostalgia should calm down, hopefully really quickly.
I think that nostalgia is important in situations like this, because when you have a group that's been severely disenfranchised for a long time, such as women in wrestling, it's important to acknowledge the past shortcomings of the companies and the promoters. So I feel like wanting to prop the rest of those women who paved the way. You know, you can even go back to, I know she's taboo to say her name, but the Moolah Mae Young days, Wendy Richter, Bertha Faye, like all these women, Bull Nagano, even all the Joshi women who Sierra would kill me if I didn't remember their names. But I feel like it's important for the very first time to acknowledge and appreciate, because you'll never have another first. Once it's the first, it becomes normal. We've never had these firsts, and there's a reason that we haven't had these firsts, and I feel like that reason needs to be acknowledged. We were a shitty society, and we're a better society that has acknowledged our shortcomings, and we are giving these people who didn't have these opportunities before the exact same equal opportunities. So let's say we fucked up. Let's give these women who didn't get the chance to have these chances that Alexa and Carmella and Sasha and Bayley and Charlotte and Becky and so on and so forth are getting. So, I mean, while I think ultimately the show will fail if there isn't great wrestling, I think the nostalgia aspect is more important than anything in this one show, because you want to make sure people understand the importance of the show. So before we move on from this topic, I want to ask all you guys, give me one dream match you want to see on the show. So we'll go in the same order. Go ahead and start, Ricky. Anything you want, they just have to be alive.
Oh.
It has to be possible, basically.
I think maybe Trish versus Sasha Banks.
Okay.
Or maybe the four horsewomen.
For the four horsewomen versus four horsewomen.
Yeah. I'll say Sasha versus Trish. So I feel like we got a little. It wasn't so much a tease, but they had the run in at the Royal Rumble. I just feel that definitely would appeal to me more than anything else. Or do we get maybe a fatal four-way with the four horsewomen of wrestling?
I don't know how much they'll go between the brands, but that'd be a hell of a match.
Mm-hmm.
Carl.
I'll give you. Unfortunately, I'm going to give you two. I'm going to give you a fun one, and I'm going to give you an and I'm going to give you a serious one. Well, it's my show, damn it. So I'm going to do what I want to do. So I'm going to give you a fun one, and I'm going to give you it's not a dream match because it's happened before, but it's nostalgic. I would actually like to see Trish and Mickey have one more match. Outside of that, I've talked about this before. What I would really like to see, if you guys watch Glow, I don't know how many of you guys watch that show or not, but I would like to see Lana and Zoya versus Liberty Bell and Lacey Evans. That's what I want to see. I think that would be outstanding.
God. The undertones of the 80s would be like crazy.
I'm telling you. It's kind of a little current day too, if you want to get real with it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kyle.
Well, Carl took one of mine because I was gonna say I'd love to see Mickey and Trish go back one more time. But all right, I'll give you an off the wall one, but I think it would be a really good match. Molly Holly versus Bayley.
That would be really different, but it would probably be fire. The only thing would be, do you run that face versus face, or do you make Molly go dark on her again?
No. I embrace full on crazy mode Molly Holly.
Okay. Well, there's no bigger Molly Holly fan I've ever met in my life than Mr. Clive.
Before he goes, let me change that. I'm gonna go real old school. Mighty Molly versus Bayley. Fantastic.
Okay, I like it. Go ahead, Clive.
The serious one, Ricky mentioned it, but I would the fatal four-way between the wrestling's four horsewomen seems to go unremembered quite a lot.
Yeah,
I'm stuck in a February takeover, so I think on the bigger stage, at the biggest stage that the women have ever had, a match between those four. And when you think about it, storyline-wise, that could actually work over the next 3 months. So that would be my serious pick. The sports entertainment pick, and I'm dead serious here, I think it would be good fun. Trish Stratus and Mickie James teaming up against the Iconics.
Trish and
Could be
Mickie.
good, yeah.
See, I was thinking that if anybody, it would be the Iconics probably versus the Bellas, and probably Trish and Lita versus Mickey and Alexa.
All right.
But I
Or
would be interested in I'll be interested in every match you guys said. I'd watch like hell.
Natalia versus Beth Phoenix.
Well, see, so the Beth Phoenix thing, I think Beth is going to be on commentary.
See, I thought I saw something on Twitter that someone said that she's going to be wrestling.
Well,
But
I'm
I'm
sure she
trying
wants
to find it again.
Commentary. I want Renee
And
on commentary.
Well, Renee's
I
going to be
also-
play-by-play, obviously, if she does anything. Probably.
An all women's commentary team.
I would be on board with that. Have Renee doing that. Have the girl from NXT doing the backstage interviews. I can't remember her name right now.
Kayla Braxton.
Yeah, have her doing backstage interviews, like
Damn,
doing
Carl.
all women's production team. Have
He
Jacqueline get the referee shirt out.
Right? And, well, Jessica Carr is a ref in NXT, and they just added a second one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so have all female officials, all female staff. Yeah, bring Lillian Garcia in to be the ring announcer.
An all-female.
Well, I mean,
crowd.
they have JoJo.
Not JoJo, yeah, but we're talking like a combination of the nostalgia and
Yeah,
the
I got
modern.
you. I got you.
Let
How
her
about
sing.
Nia Jax versus Tamina, so we can finally get that epic stare down that we got, the conclusion of that
Don't
epic stare down.
disrespect
Nia
the
Jax to face
Polynesians.
another
No,
monster.
hey, I loved that. I'm
Awesome.
trolling someone.
What's
I
that?
have-
Kyle?
I
One
said,
more-
if I want Nia to face a monster, I want her to face Awesome Khan. Bring Kia Stevens in.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
What'd you say, Brian?
I've got one more dream match for you. The whole pay-per-view is a 50-woman gauntlet match,
Oh,
and Nikki Cross comes in at number 1 and leaves as the winner after 4 hours of neck breakers and screaming.
No bias there at all.
Zero.
No.
Yeah, right?
Well,
Ash
okay.
Brave
So there's-
Heart, face paint.
There's only two people he loves more than two women he loves more than Nikki. That's Viper, aka Piper Niven, and that's Session Martina.
Yeah, she's awesome.
We're going to
She
see
is.
both on Sunday.
Shout out to those women too, by the way, because they're killing it right now. So let's move on to SummerSlam because that's the more current show. It's starting to form into shape. We have some idea of what our main events are gonna be. Bryan and Miz will surely be made soon. Carmella will be facing Becky Lynch for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Alexa and Ronda for the Raw Women's Championship. Kevin Owens and Braun Strowman in a very interesting match where if Braun loses by any way, disqualification, count out, submission, or pin, he loses the briefcase, and we have our main events. So, gentlemen, I'm going to go the opposite way we started. I'm going to start with Brian. Your favorite wrestler in the world is one Brock Lesnar. First, how do you feel about Brock and Roman? Time number 200.
It's not time number 200.
Oh, well,
It's
realistically,
one night.
oh, yeah.
Oh.
The sigh.
There's nothing I even want to add. Sorry, I know we're a panel here, a discussion team, but I just want that title off Brock ASAP. I don't care if they give it to Kurt Hawkins. I don't care if they give it to Jonathan Coachman. Just get the title off Brock.
I have heard this rant before
See
by
the
myself. But
They
go
did
ahead.
a whole damn show on this exact premise. So let me change the question. And then we'll go back to you, Kyle, after this. Let me change the question. Do you think that Roman versus Brock, in the way that they presented it to us, is overdone?
No,
Okay.
it's not done. A very quick thing I want to say, taking away the match itself, if Roman ends up winning, when he was a champion in 2016, he had a good couple of months with the title. The booking was good. The matches were really good with AJ Styles and then the Shield guys. So maybe people have a short memory when they think, oh, Roman's going to be the champion. This is going to be shit. It wasn't shit when he was the champion the last time. So try and bear that in mind, because you're going to have a lot of people gunning for Roman Reigns if he wins it. And just like when John Cena was at his peak, and people were always really excited to see who was going to face John Cena next, we could get that again with Roman Reigns. So just bear that in mind if you really don't want Roman Reigns to be the champion, because it might not be for long.
I think at this point, people, like you said, don't care if Vince wins the damn title himself. They just want it on Raw every week and off of Brock. But go ahead, Kyle.
Well, and to back up Brian's point, like, my issue, I am not a Roman Reigns defender. I don't hate Roman, but I'm not a defender either. But my issue with this rivalry has never been Roman. My issue is Brock, and it's not even Brock because he's never around. Because, I know that that's all just their master plan of trying to work the smarks and turn him into this new school heel. So, I understand the business end of that. My issue with Brock is that the matches aren't good anymore because they're so repetitive.
Yes.
My issue with Brock, because I know what he can do in the ring, and I know how good he's capable of being. Seeing German suplex F5 just isn't gonna do it for me, and I'd just rather not see it at all.
Okay, Carl. So with that being said, do you think they'll deliver, Carl?
Y'all think they'll deliver?
Yes. And granted, before this will be their 6th time in some form or fashion wrestling each other since
Right.
2014.
And
So
okay,
Cloud's gonna give him a turd sandwich.
listen.
turd sandwich, George Andrews.
If you're asking me if that specific match will deliver, the answer was going to be I don't think it will.
Okay.
I think the end result is going to deliver. That's what I'm going to say about it, and I have my reasons for thinking that. We'll get to that at some point when you and I predict SummerSlam. But I think when it's all said and done at the end of the night, I think some people are going to be happy. But no, I don't think the match itself will deliver. And I want to just add on to what Kyle was saying about his issues with Brock and how repetitive his matches have been. Can we not let Paul Heyman off the hook here? As great as Paul Heyman is, Paul Heyman's promo is the same promo every time now. Essentially, he just adds a different guy and says a few extra quips about that guy. It's the same thing. He's made this feud. Brock Lesnar has made me hate Paul Heyman as much as that boggles my mind to say. I'm tired of him too.
And it's really just a variation of the same promo he did when he was managing CM Punk. He just inserts Brock's nicknames instead of Punk's nicknames.
Well, go back to the original Next Big Thing, Paul Heyman.
2002.
Yeah. Is that an admonition on Paul? Is he more of a one-trick pony than we want to think he is?
I don't think so. I think it's just a combination of Brock. 'Cause I think if it was anybody else, we'd still put up with it. It's just everyone is tired of hearing the reigning, defending, whatever the fuck. I can't even undisputed. They're just tired of hearing all that. You know what I mean? Over and over.
That sounds more like the problem is him being champ, right? Because if he's not the champ, would
there
still be issues?
No, probably not. I don't know that. I think Heyman could find a new way to work Brock's how he is. Of course, I get it. It's hard to when Brock isn't any different, but I think there could be a way to implement it, when he did it with CM Punk, I hardly remember that time period. I've a lot of that out of my head over the years, but like you said, he used all his nicknames. I think Heyman, I know he's creative. I mean, there's rumors of him going back to the writings team and helping out there. So I know he knows, and he's had moments. I thought with Samoa Joe, they did some good stuff last year. But I feel like something about it. I feel like the whole package, the Brock Heyman package is just stale. Yeah, it's just boring. I'm just
diminishing returns. The first time you saw it, it was badass. Here we are 5 years later, and it's the exact same.
Right.
And it hasn't changed at all. The formula is the exact same. So now that the returns have diminished to the point where it's It's bordering on X-Pac heat. It's like, no, I just want to turn my TV off. I care so little that I just want to change the channel.
Let it be noted that I don't believe in X-Pac heat, but your point is very duly noted. Ricky, I want to get back to the match. I know you have the most famous social suplex saying ever in Brock. My question to you is, what do you think that they could feasibly do in just their match, not saying any post-match or shenanigans, but in their match that would get people interested?
I would do the exact opposite of what took place at WrestleMania.
So have like
I would
20 minutes
have
worth of red
Roman.
zones.
I would have Roman beat the shit out of Brock. I think we're all probably in agreement in that we all think Brock's not leaving SummerSlam with the title.
Well, Kyle? Carl?
I mean,
I don't think he is. No, I think
I don't
this is
think
it.
he is either.
What,
Clive?
you don't think he's? I think I've just got.
I don't think he's leaving with the title. Of course, it wouldn't fucking shock me, but I don't think he is.
Nothing shocks me anymore.
There's still the briefcase as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think worst case is that he definitely won't be leaving the Raw the night after with the title.
That's if he shows up.
Yeah. So I would just go the other way. I would have Roman beat the living hell out of Brock, and I would put the title on Roman. You do whatever you want with the cash in after if you want. For just get the title off Brock now. For me, the first title run he had I enjoyed that. It was kind of fun because it was quite different. But now it's just it's just too repetitive. Just like his matches, it doesn't feel like a big deal anymore when we see him.
Okay.
So
I'm glad you mentioned Big Deal, because speaking of big deals, it's no secret that he has signed to fight another fight in the UFC. He's joining back the USADA pool, so it's official. Him and Daniel Cormier will be fighting in January, I believe, for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. I want to go to Brian again because Brian is the one guy of the four of us who.
Well,
doesn't
yeah.
get
So feasibly, then he could hold on to the belt if they were still trying to do that whole bring
which
Brock
is what I was going to allude to.
onto UFC television, showing off the WWE
Absolutely.
Championship, especially with UFC having their deal with Fox and blah blah blah.
Brian is the one guy of the five of us who really gives no shit about mixed martial arts whatsoever. But my question to you is, with all the different parts floating around with the whole Roman saga of will he finally beat him, Braun or even Kevin Owens lying in the woodwork to possibly cash in on Brock, the fatigue of the crowd that's very audible now and known that they're tired of Brock having the championship, all the things. Do you think there is any relevance to having Brock stay champ just for the purposes of this super fight?
Well, personally speaking, no.
But do you see any merit of it?
Has this happened before in UFC or anywhere else where people have got credibility based on their wrestling career? No.
Pro wrestling career? There's only been two pro wrestlers to make any steam in the UFC, and that's Punk and Brock. Punk was trash. Brock was good. Lashley was good in Bellator. Batista was good in Strikeforce?
Strikeforce, yeah.
yeah, Strikeforce.
So some other guys have fought, but it's actually been more of the other side. More UFC guys come and wrestle. Filthy Tom Lawler is actually signed to MLW. Chael Sonnen loves pro wrestling.
Well,
So does DC.
Yeah, Cormier is a huge. Cormier and Seth Rollins are super tight. So it's normally the other side coming over. It's very rarely the wrestling side, because wrestling looks at people. I mean, MMA fans and MMA purists look at wrestlers like Punk, guys who don't have any real background, who just think it's cool, want to jump in here and think they can do anything, and they get their ass whooped.
Well, if that's the case, I was just saying then there isn't any merit, and that's just on top of my personal opinion that I'm not an MMA fan. Okay, he might go into the octagon with the red belt. So fuck.
We were talking about it off air, me and Rance, that there's no chance in hell that Dana lets him in the octagon with that title. And when he turned up for that segment with DC, I don't know, did they even mention that he was WWE Universal Champion?
Well, no, but they was okay. So let me jump in for just a second. First and foremost, that shit just happened, right? So they wouldn't have mentioned it there because they don't give a shit about wrestling. But if you go back to the last fight that Brock had, I think it was at 200 against Mark Hunt, right? The deal was you can have Brock do a fight. You're going to mention the entire time he wrestles for us, and we're going to have an advertisement on your show that he's fighting Randy Orton at SummerSlam. There was a cross-promotion of both brands. Dana and Vince are friends. We have to all understand this. They may know that they're competing against each other, but they are very good friends. Dana audibly says he looks up to Vince from a promoter standpoint. So the fight is signed. The reason I'm asking this, and I want to go to Kyle, but the reason I'm asking this about the title is I believe it's relevant because there is something in a guy like Vince's mind to say, my scripted wrestling champion is bad enough to wrestle your real champion, and if he wins that champion, well, he's the best in MMA and in wrestling, which will not only give some legitimacy to the storyline and to the brand and whatnot, but can be used in a story. Because the guy who beats Brock after that, if you think Brock beating the Streak was hot, feasibly, there is no greater accomplishment than beating a guy who's the best in reality and in the universe, right?
All right, so I got a couple things I'll say about it. Number one, it makes sense if they're actually going to promote it. Because when the DC thing happened, WWE didn't really mention that shit.
But like I said, it just happened. That wasn't planned.
Well, I know that it wasn't planned, but with all the rewrites that Raw goes through on a continuous basis, and with Vince McMahon and Michael Cole's ear the entire show, you mean to tell me he couldn't just be like, yo, homie, make sure you mention that Brock and Daniel Cormier had a run-in. Make sure you highlight that.
That's a good point.
So if they're going to actually take advantage of that publicity, absolutely it would make sense. And my other thing on that is, if you do that and Brock does win the UFC match, I don't think he will because I think Cormier's going to mop his ass. But if Brock does win that match, if I'm Vince McMahon, Brock drops that title before his next fight because I want my next champion to have beaten the UFC heavyweight champion. And he brings the UFC title to the fucking ring.
You see the work, right?
Both belts.
So, to your credit, Clive, I really respect and understand where you're coming from. But surely, if you see Kyle lay it out that way, and I want to go to you, Carl, next, but surely you can see the merit in a guy like Vince's eyes. Oh my God, right?
Are you asking him? Because I mean,
either one of you, whoever wants to jump in. Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll jump in. First of all, this is all beautiful, and we've all got this amazing grand plan for legitimizing the WWE. First of all, if that's the case, this is just some getting your dick card thing that Vince McMahon needs to do for himself. WWE is legitimate. They just signed $1 billion fucking deal to Fox. That's all it is. I mean, seriously, and think about that for a second. They just signed for, what was it, 5 years? I don't even know the whole numbers, but we're talking the billions, right? Their stock price is through the roof, okay, right now. They're legitimate. This is a legitimate company. And here's the other thing. I know a lot of wrestling fans like MMA, but if you are a hardcore wrestling fan, you care more about the WWE than you do the UFC. Like, is it really that big of a deal for Brock to show up with his UFC title as fans? Or are we just going to be like, oh my God, it's Brock and the UFC title. We already hate Brock. So like he brings another belt and he holds it for this one he's got right now for another 6-7 months. It's just making it worse, in my opinion.
Let me play devil's advocate, and then I'm gonna get back to you, Ricky. But I want to go back to Clive. Let me play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then why did we give so much of a fuck when Austin and Tyson fought?
When they fought.
Remember when Tyson came? That was one of the biggest moments at that time in wrestling history. It wouldn't have been a big deal if Tyson was just some dude from the block, but he was the baddest dude from real fighting.
Right, I get that, but here's another thing I will say: there is a difference in my opinion there. Mike Tyson, in terms of celebrity scale and name scale, is so much. I mean, there's no Brock Lesnar, Cormier, none of those fuckers hold a candle to who Tyson was and his popularity. So I mean, I think that might be part of it because it's Mike fucking Tyson. That's right. When you say Mike Tyson, you say Mike Tyson. When you say Daniel Cormier or Brock Lesnar, you say Brock Lesnar. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't just nobody loses their shit over those guys. But yeah, I mean, I get
media is different though. Media is different too.
Sure.
Whereas now everybody's covering wrestling, whereas then they had to do anything they could to get covered. But Clive, give me one more tip. I know I said a lot of shit you don't really care about, but I want to come back to you, and then I want to finish with Ricky.
Hey, sorry, they cut out a wee second there.
Oh yeah, well, I know you're the one person of the five of us who doesn't care. I mean, do you see any correlation to possibly Brock being a dual sport champion and the Tyson and Austin scenario? Because they're essentially the same thing.
They are essentially the same thing, but as Carl said, and people who are listening to this can't see, but I'm doing a sort of barometer here. You've got WWE, UFC sort of teetering beside each other, and then like boxing, especially boxing in the 90s, was sky high. Huge. And it's a totally different game back then with boxing. I mean, UFC is popular now, but I still don't think UFC is as popular now as boxing was in the 90s.
No, not at all. But the media is different too, which is what I think fills the gap.
No MMA fighter even has the celebrity level of a more recent boxer to be involved in wrestling. None of them are Money Mayweather.
Conor McGregor is close.
Ewan McGregor is close, but he's not with UFC right now.
Actually, that's the conversation. That's a personal conversation. Conor is in fights he is in talks to fight Khabib. He still is a champion there. But that's another conversation. But yes, the point is valid that Tyson, the level that Tyson was at that point is higher than anybody we've mentioned, maybe this entire show so far. But Ricky, last thought, man. Go ahead.
First of all, it's Brock. Like Kyle says, Brock will lose against DC. That has to enter Vince's mind surely, because this isn't an easy fight at all for Brock. Personally, I think Brock will win, but we're talking about Cormier, who's probably the second greatest light heavyweight of all time, behind John Jones. He's only ever lost to John Jones once.
By the way, that's the fight that I think we all want to see is Jones and Lesnar, not Cormier.
Yeah,
and Lesnar.
Can both of them go long enough without failing a drug test to ever make that happen?
Well, in WWE.
In WWE, but like we want to see that. I want to see that fight for fucking real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bones versus Lesnar in the fucking octagon.
And the other thing would be, let's just say Brock retains at SummerSlam. We need to understand and accept that we then won't see him defend the title until WrestleMania.
Essentially,
the only time he may get a title defense in would be in the pay-per-view in September or early October.
Oh, well, once October hits, bro, it's straight fight count.
That's it. Yep, that's it. And his status for Royal Rumble would be up in the air, which is, I would assume he won't be there.
Okay.
I understand why Vince might think this is a good idea, but just get the fucking title off him already.
I do think that is in the cards.
Yeah,
I do.
I think the stipulation between Kevin Owens and Braun Strowman, I think as soon as they made that match, my mind was made up that Brock wasn't leaving SummerSlam with the title. I think I might have done it slightly different, but I'm in favour of any full-time guy getting a title off him, so I don't care who it is.
Even more than that, I think when he made the announcement, when Kurt made the announcement at the beginning of Extreme Rules, that Brock had to show up and either defend his title, come to Raw, or get stripped. I think that was the acknowledgement to the crowd that this is just about over. Because I mean, we all watched, y'all saw the pop that got. That was the biggest pop of the night. Just for an announcement of a dude having to possibly give up his title. They gave a yes chant. But that's that. We had to talk about that. We got through it. Let's get to the other title match. And I'm going to start with my boy Kyle. Because Kyle is a huge proponent of SmackDown. He is a huge proponent of the WWE Championship. AJ Styles will be facing Samoa Joe in a dream match for those of us who watched TNA in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. My first question to you, sir, is can they live up to the hype?
No.
All right. Good talk.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'm glad you started with me because I'm also probably of the 5 people here, I'm also probably the one who follows non-WWE wrestling the most.
Yes.
And I think that this is going to be Shinsuke AJ all over again, only worse.
Don't say that.
Because here's why. No, but here's why. Here's why, man. You and I were there for it in TNA during those good days.
Yes.
AJ Styles and Samoa Joe headlined a pay-per-view against each other for the first time in 2005. That's 13 years ago.
Yes.
AJ is now early 40s. Joe is now early 40s. Joe is not as
agile
as he once was. Joe was always a big guy, but Joe used to fly around the ring like a fucking cruiserweight.
That's why he was an X Division.
And their big rivalry was for the X Division title. It wasn't for the TNA World title. They were fighting cruiserweight matches against each other. Yep. And they can't go at that level anymore. And so I really feel like this is going to be a disappointment.
Clive?
I was actually listening to the Doc Chad Matthews podcast this afternoon, and it made me think what he was saying. When was the last time that AJ Styles had a really, really, really good match?
Oh, his age is catching up to him, for sure. Yeah.
That's a good question. Was it? Would you guys say it was a Lesnar match?
Probably.
But I'd say that one was only as good as it was because our expectations for a Lesnar match are so low now.
There's truth in that. Yeah.
Last,
hard to argue.
Was him and Cena.
And even then, it was a divisive match.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think, and again, our scale for AJ is higher than everybody else because AJ has damn good matches every time he wrestles. It's just that have we seen that barn burner, that match that leaves us in a stupor? We probably haven't seen that in a while. Yes, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they can live up to the hype though, AJ and Joe?
I think they can. It's whether they're allowed to. I think that's what we've seen with AJ Styles' program with Kevin Owens and the program with Nakamura. I've warmed to the Nakamura feud. The matches, even the outcomes. But overall consensus was that they didn't live up to the hype. And I think that's down to creative and not match quality. So they can, but I don't know if they actually will be allowed to.
To back that up, when's the last time AJ had a big title match that ended with a clean finish? Like 100% clean.
The last man standing match?
But that was only a clean finish because the last man standing match means you can't get the fuck up anymore.
Hey, you didn't specify, okay?
Well, I would say the WrestleMania match then, because the low blow took place after.
Right. Oh, that's right. The low blow was after the match.
Ha! There you go. Let me stick up for the Shinsuke AJ feud first and foremost. I think most of us can admit in hindsight, even at the time, Carl and I talked about this ad nauseum on our show, that the matches all were good. The issue was the deflating ass finishes, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think the biggest issue with the WrestleMania match was simply that we convinced ourselves we were about to get a 6-star match, and it wasn't in the Tokyo Dome, and most of it wasn't rating, so we didn't get that, right? So I want to stick up for that real quick, but go ahead, Ricky. Will it live up to the hype? Can it live up to the hype?
Just to quickly touch on the Styles Nakamura, we said it as well on our show, and we said it again last night, that outside of the last 30 seconds of most of those matches, the match itself was pretty good. So, but I think, like it says, we all just got caught up on what took place with the finish, and that kind of spoiled it for some people.
And they were shitty finishes, let's be honest.
Will it live up to the hype? No. Because my expectations are that high. And I'm kind of, and what Kyle says, they can't do what they've done about, 12, 13, 14 years ago?
13 years ago, rivalry goes back a long time.
Yeah, like that was excellent stuff as well, and Christopher Daniels as well was involved in it. So I guess my mind is probably still stuck back in 2002, 2005, 2006, expecting them to do what they've done back then. I still think it'll be a good match though. Like I'm not going to say it's it's going to be this 5, 6, 7, 8-star match, but I still think it'll be a match where people are going to be satisfied from it. I don't think it's going to live up to the hype because I think we're going to build up that much, almost to what we've done with Styles Nakamura at WrestleMania, when it didn't live up to the hype, but it certainly wasn't a bad match, and I kind of have a feeling that this is the same route this match is going to take. Overall, I think it'll be a good match, but it certainly isn't going to live up to my expectations because I'm letting my expectations run away.
So let me go to the one person who's going to make some sense out of all of this. Let's go to the mark of the group. Carl, my God, there's too many Ks. Carl, tell them why they're wrong. Can it live up to the hype?
No.
Damn.
But
wow.
But I have two things about it. But it can get close, and I say that because I feel like the rest of these guys are underestimating it a little bit. The reason why I say it can get close is because if they tell the right story and if they are willing to go back and draw out from history and draw from that well, and we know that they have such a storied rivalry if you watch outside of the WWE, and we know that they have chemistry together because of who they are and because of how many times they've wrestled, I think they can get close. Do I think it's going to be as good as prior matches from 13 years ago? Fuck no. But I do think they can get close. Now, let me just say one thing here that nobody else has said, and y'all are going to disagree. I don't really give a shit. I don't think Joe was the right choice.
Oh, now that's something. Yes, please tell us who you think was.
Well, in my opinion, I think The Miz is the right choice. And that's not, and I don't say that because I'm a Miz fan, and I am, but I don't say that because. Say that. But
I think Miz is in Brian right now needs to be told.
Right. See, I disagree. I think that here's my thing with Joe. First of all, Joe is a badass. We know this. He's the kind of guy who can walk in and get a title shot whenever the fuck he wants, and that's all good and dandy. And I guess he stole the title shot. I mean, I don't know if he was planned to be the guy or not. I don't know if that was really clarified. He just came in and signed a contract while Paige was distracted. But
it was clarified. Paige,
okay,
he was the guy that she picked. Yeah.
And here's my thing about that. So far on SmackDown, Joe hasn't really done anything. He's beaten up some garbage. Like, I mean, if you think about it, and even coming over from Raw, Joe left Raw a loser when he lost to Roman Reigns at Backlash. I mean, he was on SmackDown by then, but you know what I mean? He left a loser. Mm-hmm. And The Miz just came from Raw. IC champ. He's basically made two guys over on Raw tag team champions in his own way. He built them up, made them more confident. Like, to me, in turn, if you're going off kayfabe alone, and I'm not one of those guys that does that, I get that SummerSlam and cards like this, they want to have these big matches. I think that The Miz is the right choice because I'm not ready for them to jump on the Daniel Bryan Miz bandwagon yet. They're already doing it, and that's fine. That's where they're going with it. But to me, that match, the way I would do it, I hate fantasy booking, but I would have Miz win the title at SummerSlam and have Daniel Bryan and Miz chase each other for the next 6, 7, 8, 9 months until WrestleMania. That's the way I would do it. Granted, that would be something we're going to have the creative team come together and make it happen correctly. But that's, in my head, that's what I would like to see. AJ's title run to me has been boring, and I don't know that there's anybody on SmackDown right now as a singles competitor that I look at and think they can toe up with Samoa Joe because of how badass he is. But the problem is I don't think Joe has done much. And I'm just kind of like, okay, it's Joe. Like, here you go. Everybody likes Joe. I get it, but it's Joe. That's just where I'm at with that.
Confession?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Confession? I wanted Rusev to take the title at Extreme Rules.
Oh, I did too.
Number one, he's insanely over with the crowd. Number 2, I'm a huge fan of Rusev Day.
Yeah.
Number 3, I want to hear the melodic tones of Aiden English singing in the WWE Champion.
You won't hear the melodic tones of Aiden English anymore, much longer for Rusev Day in general.
Yeah.
Lance, why you got to kill my vibe?
Well, you out here talking about hypotheticals about Rusev should have won the title. So my question to you is, aside from Rusev, and Ricky's very happy because Ricky's Mr. Rusev, do you think Joe and AJ was the right match? And if it wasn't, who would you have made it be? And if you want to say Rusev, that's fine, but I want somebody else from you, since you just said that. If it is somebody else.
I mean, if it's somebody else, honestly, because number 1, they can have a great match with anyone, and number 2, I'm high on them. It's too early for them to get the title, but run back Andrade and AJ. Screw it. I'm all about some Andrade Cien Almas.
There's a story brewing with Andrade, definitely.
But I'm all about some Andrade Cien Almas.
Do you think Joe and AJ was the right match, though?
I think Joe and AJ is the right match because unless you're going to go with The Miz, like I'm 100% with Carl on Miz needs the WWE title and Bryan should be chasing him because that's a great story. But other than that, like nobody else really makes sense on SmackDown because since AJ is not actually the star of SmackDown and not the focal point of SmackDown, nobody's really built up as a contender to be at that level because SmackDown is the Miz and Daniel Bryan show.
People too busy doing yes chants. So let me ask you this. I want to ask you the same question, Clive, but I want to kind of change it a bit. Okay. Is AJ and Joe the match that you think should happen? And surely, I think, do you see the correlation? I think most of us accept that.
I've lost you again there, sorry.
Okay. I think most of us accept that Raw is the variety show, SmackDown is the wrestling show. So do you think AJ and Joe was the right pick? And do you think it's the right pick to counteract Roman and Brock?
Again, you cut out a wee bit there, so I caught most of it. I think it's whenever you say my name, my Skype just plays up. But was the question, do you think AJ and Joe is the right option?
Yeah, basically.
I can't think of any evidence to disagree with Carl's point, but at the same time, I don't think there's anyone else with enough credibility at the moment, the way things have been booked, than Joe. I know Joe's not been on TV that much, but I think he's the best choice, just from a fan perspective, where to counter Roman and Brock, where the fan sentiment is negative, they need something positive. So the possibility of rerunning a dream match, although the dream match was at its peak 10, 12 years ago, you've got, again, this is what happened at WrestleMania, where you had the corporate championship match and you had the Mark Friendly championship match on SmackDown. So I think they're rerunning that again. With Carl's point about Daniel Bryan and The Miz, wait until WrestleMania, I agree, but with Daniel Bryan's contract status still up in the air, I think they decided to play it safe and just run it now, just in case Daniel Bryan decides, no, I'm just going to leave.
And I think we also have to acknowledge, let's assume Bryan resigns. They can run one match and go back to it.
Of course.
Yeah, they can. I think that with all the heat behind it, I think if you run it now and then say, oh, we'll run it again at WrestleMania, I just think it loses some steam. Now, there's also the argument that it could lose steam on the way to WrestleMania if you don't run it until then. But I don't think it loses steam if the people behind the story pull their heads out and do it right. Because these guys, this has been going on for a long ass time now, and it's still hot. People still get hot for it.
Sure, but I think the difference is that it was so hot because we never thought we would see it. So now that we know we can see it, and they're gonna make us wait essentially 12 months to see it, I'm an old school fan. I love that shit. But we live in a microwave society where people think that if you've been feuding for 3 months, you've been feuding too long. So do you think
fair.
that that's a realistic ask of the crowd? We understand. I'm gonna ask you that, Ricky. And I'm not trying. This isn't me doing that shit, but I think we all acknowledge creative has to do better and knock this out of the park, and it's damn near foolproof. But is the crowd realistically gonna allow them to wait 12 months with by what you're asking instead of saying let's go ahead and run this now and try to stretch it? What do you think, Ricky?
No. I mean, you've got a portion of the fan base who are not happy with Daniel Bryan's been booked because they wanted him to be already having feuds with Joe and AJ, etc., etc.
Absolutely. Bryan should have won the championship the day he returned, according to his fans.
So I mean, let's work on the premise that Daniel Bryan is going to resign. So you run it at SummerSlam, which is not official, but it's bound to happen. I agree that Miz should get the title, like, if not, obviously not at SummerSlam, but as soon as possible after SummerSlam. In order to prolong the Daniel Bryan Miz storyline, you could potentially have something like the Miz costs Daniel Bryan in the Royal Rumble. Miz can go into it as a champion, causes him to lose, and Daniel Bryan ultimately wins the number one contender tournament match, whatever, at the next pay-per-view to face the Miz at next year's WrestleMania.
Let me just say that if Bryan is in the Rumble this year, please just let him win the shit.
Well, I think if they're going to go the route of with AJ, because there's been rumor that Vince is very happy with AJ as champ, so there's a good chance that Samoa Joe is not winning this title at SummerSlam anyway. So I mean, in theory, you could have The Miz beat Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam, which I don't know that they're going to do that or not, but you could have The Miz beat Daniel at SummerSlam. AJ beats Joe, and now The Miz is your guy, and so The Miz can win the title, theoretically. And then Bryan had hold it for a while in Miz fashion and all the cheating, shitty ways that he does. And then Bryan wins the Rumble or something along those lines. And you can work back there, yes. So, I mean, I'm okay with that. I know, like, I say this a lot, but I strongly am of the opinion that The Miz has been the best performer in the company, like, overall package for a while now, in terms of everything that he is able to do, and on top of holding down with all of the media and the reality show and all the shit that he does. I think it's high time that he was rewarded in the proper way, because I feel like Bryan and Miz, to me, is a money feud that is now a little bit on the back burner because we're doing Roman and Brock again, and we're doing AJ and Joe, and it's just kind of like, it almost seems like maybe they're not as high on this feud as the rest of us are in some ways. But that's just kind of like, I'm not saying that they're against it, but it just doesn't feel like they're giving it the due that it really kind of deserves, in my opinion. I think a WrestleMania match, they don't have to just have that be the only encounter, but I think it has to happen. I think it should happen.
I think that you can use a SummerSlam match to set up the WrestleMania match if Miz is going in as champ. Because Miz needs to win. And here's why Miz needs to win. Miz wins, then he wins the title, and Bryan wants a title match, but Miz is Miz, and he's like, nah, scrub, I beat you already.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
SummerSlam, Daniel, you're never getting a title match as long as I've got the title. Then Daniel finally wins the fucking Royal Rumble.
Boom.
Yeah.
And
Everybody's
now
happy.
Has to face him for the title.
Yep.
Because Miz is still the champion.
Somebody
And
tweet
this
Road
is
Dogg
how
right
it's
now.
WrestleMania.
And can you imagine the shit that Miz will talk if he beats Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam? My God.
He needs to win. I agree with that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then every time Daniel wants the title match, just be like, no, Daniel, remember that time I gave you the skull-crushing finale on the steel steps and then beat your ass like the scrub that you are?
Remember that time I threw my fake baby at you? Go ahead and finish it off, Ricky.
No, I'm just in agreement that I think at some point this year we will get Miz as champion. And then I do think Daniel Bryan Miz will close. Maybe not close. I don't know. We don't care about that right now. But I think we're going to eventually get Daniel Bryan and the Miz for the title, and that's when quote unquote Daniel Bryan will be coronated again. Overall, I think I can understand why they're running it now, because there still is that threat of Daniel Bryan potentially leaving. And like I said, for me personally, I can't speak for everyone else, I'm okay with them going into SummerSlam with this match, because to me there's still mileage in the storyline. I don't need everything in the here and now. And I don't want to end it on a negative note, but there's this whole stigma that people think that WWE is incapable of telling long-term stories.
That's the majority of the stories they tell.
This storyline specifically blows that theory out of the water. So I don't. For me, like I said, I would have waited until next WrestleMania anyway. But like I said, we're impatient in this day and age, and we want everything now. But I think that's the route they're going to take. Miz wins at SummerSlam, and they ultimately get the rematch at next year's WrestleMania.
Do you guys remember the Cena Rock feud, the original one, that the once in a lifetime at 28? And
Yes.
remember, Rock caused Cena to lose at WrestleMania 27 in Atlanta. The next night, Rock calls him out, or I don't remember who called who out, but they end up face to face in the ring. Rock says, "We'll do something that's never been done before. Me and you, next year WrestleMania, we're gonna book it now. Shake hands, bing bang boom, money printed, right?" Do you remember the back? Like, people were pissed that they had to wait a year to see that, and the only reason that it worked was because Rock doesn't work there every day. Bryan and Miz run every SmackDown. So eventually, I think it would have ran into some issues of when is it going to happen? Why aren't you giving us what we want? Things of that nature. But that's what people would say. And I'm not trolling when I say that. That's a legitimate criticism that people have, is they don't give us what we want. Well,
but
okay.
But then you could have potentially done what we all thought they were going to do, was have the Miz win Money in the Bank and have him cash in on Daniel Bryan immediately after he wins at SummerSlam. Because then you could have turned. Daniel Bryan is not allowed an immediate rematch because there's no such thing now on SmackDown. So Miz could have talked as much shit as he wanted for the next 6-7 months.
Look, bro, I don't understand the Braun shit anyway. I mean, I get it, sure, but Braun didn't need that damn briefcase. But that's another.
No, he did not.
Nope.
Yeah.
I want to move to some NXT talk. So there were 2 NXT rumors right now that I think are super prevalent and getting a lot of traction on the interwebs. The indie wrestling sensation, and who Kyle and I both think might be the best prospect on the market right now, Matt Riddle, it's rumored to be in talks with WWE or NXT. Don't listen to other shows that have said he signed. There is no signing yet. He hasn't signed. It's in talks. Another thing that came up today was that Juice Robinson, formerly known as CJ Parker, who is the current IWGP United States champion in New Japan, The rumor now is that WWE is interested in signing him again. So I'm gonna start with Carl first. I know you're a big Matt Riddle guy. Me and you have seen him in person. Uh, do you think it's finally time for Matt to come to WWE? And do you think that Juice should leave New Japan after he's finally gotten the traction he's always wanted to come back home, essentially, to WWE?
Don't think it's time for Matt Riddle to come to WWE? Because I kind of lost your connection there for a second. Is that what
Yeah.
you're asking? In a nutshell? Okay. Yeah, I do. First of all, the dude, a while back when you and I first started this podcast with Caleb, we did like a little draft thing that never made it to air.
Oh, shit, that's right.
But Riddle was one of the guys. I took Roman Reigns first, and everyone, of course, hate, whatever. But then I took Matt Riddle right after that. Because I do think that, like you just said, that he might very well be the biggest prospect right now that you could get.
And
that's, I mean, he's got the crossover appeal with the MMA thing. He's got the look. I mean, if you look at the guy, he looks every bit the part of a superstar, in my opinion. So, yeah, I mean, I think I don't know that he's, for him personally, I don't know what his personal goals are. If he feels like he's done everything he needs to do in the indies and the WWE is the place to go now, then, you do that. If you can make that move, you do that. I say that about anybody. If you feel like, if your ultimate goal is to be in the WWE, but you want to do some shit first, the way Kenny Omega's done it, where he's done damn near everything there is to do now, with the way Cody is trying to do, where he's trying to do all this other stuff, then yeah, go for it. And I think if that's the way he feels, then he should do it. I think it's going to be a mega signing. And yeah, I think he's not AJ Styles, so he's going to end up in NXT first. And, I would imagine if he ever does make that contract signing. But he's got all the talent in the world, and I would love to see it. So, yeah, I mean, if that's what he wants to do, then let's see it.
Clive?
I have a confession to make, and this is me showing my ignorance of the independent scene. Up until a few days ago, I didn't even know what Matt Riddle looked like. So
he looks like a surfer boy.
Yeah, he looks like a stoner.
He looks like the fourth member of Hanson.
What'd you say, Kyle?
I said not looks like is. Part of the reason Matt Riddle stayed away from WWE as long as he did is because of their wellness policy for a long time, including marijuana in the 3-strike rule. Now that marijuana is just a simple fine, he's willing to make that jump because his downside will cover those weed fines, and he'll just make money off the appearances.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Clive.
So, because I haven't really I've obviously heard his name quite a lot, and I understand that he had a very successful Bloodsport event around WrestleMania weekend. So I did some sort of research tonight, knowing that we would talk about him. And wrestling-wise, I have no complaints whatsoever. I like the style that he's got, where he's got the bare feet. Very accomplished with the suplexes, with the submissions and the strikes, which is the in thing at the moment. Only issue I would have is, does he still do the bro stuff? Does he say bro during every move?
He's the king of bros.
Bro.
Well, I know people moan about WWE taking away the identity of certain independent wrestlers, but get rid of that right now, please, bros.
Well, here's the thing. We hate it a lot because Zack Ryder's sorry ass does it. And I'm just being honest with you. Matt Riddle will get away with it because he is 1,000 times better than Zack Ryder ever wished he was. Sorry, Zack Ryder, you got me blocked on Twitter, so I'm talking shit. So, I mean, seriously though, it's true. He's way better than Zack Ryder will ever dream of being in his life. I don't know about on the girlfriend side. Zack's doing well for himself there.
It'll come across more RVD like when Matt.
Sure,
Riddle
that's who he is.
does.
He's RVD meets maybe Brock. I don't know, like an MMA fighter, but yes.
I'd say Angle. RVD meets Angle.
I like that. I
Oh.
like
Yeah,
that. That's perfect.
He'll
And
get away with it. Get away with
Combination
it.
RVD and Kurt Angle. So like, sign it
Well,
up.
Go ahead, Kyle. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, I think that's definitely the right move for him. I agree with Carl, and I told you this the other day privately, Rance. Like, make your money while your body is able to handle the WWE travel schedule.
Sure.
Make your money while you can still do it, because, you know, I firmly ascribe to the belief that, yeah, you know, strong style wrestling like New Japan does is more dangerous in individual matches. But WWE's long-term 200-plus dates a year travel schedule opens you up to just as many injuries from wear and tear.
Sure.
And so while your body is able to handle that, and while you're still a hot brand, and while you've still got that name value, and if you're going to start in NXT where the fans are as rabid as they are, make that fucking money.
You're right, man.
I want to go to Ricky and Clive with this one because I think it was Clive I had a good conversation with on Twitter earlier.
Yeah, it
Particularly
was.
more about Juice and Juice, formerly CJ Parker again. So the question I want to ask, it kind of goes back to our conversation. Clive and I had a bit of a nice debate about, do WWE need to continue to keep signing the best people out there, right? Because they have already a massive roster as it speaks. And Juice, many wrestlers feel that WWE is signing guys to keep guys away from other promotions, which I think is hilarious. But if you believe that, that's all you. I completely believe the opposite of that. If you're a company, you always want to keep getting new talent. Just because you're number one doesn't mean you could just say, all right, screw it, I'm a chill for a minute. Right? The Warriors signed Kevin Durant, then they went and signed Boogie Cousins. Like, you'd never stop getting the best people. So, Ricky and Clive, whoever wants to go first, do you think possibly signing Juice and Matt Riddle is too much? Do you think they should not want to sign these guys and just because they might not have a place for them? Like, expound on that for me a little bit.
Ricky?
So I'm somewhat going to sit on the fence. I think there's no point in bringing in all this additional talent, right? If there's no real plan other than just to sort of quote unquote keep them away from other people. I also don't believe that either. But if they're going to be if they're going to do NXT touring all year long, or if they're going to have a full-time UK division, or if NXT goes 2 hours, or if SmackDown goes 3 hours, then you need that additional talent for more for the extra thing that you're planning to do. So in that sense, there's nothing wrong with bringing in the extra talent. But if it's just everything's going to stay the same, NXT still says an hour, SmackDown's 2, there's no full-time UK division, but you're continuing to stockpile talent and that you're not doing anything with them, that's the problem then. But if they're expanding their shows and if they're expanding their tours, then there's nothing wrong with bringing in this extra talent. Because as you say, just because you are at the top of the food chain doesn't mean you put your feet up and stop working. So I'm somewhat going to sit on the fence with it, but I think if they are expanding, then they have to bring in more talent.
More name value talent at that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Clive.
You mentioned the Twitter back and forth we had earlier, and I'm going to use, again, Dan, is it Matha or Matha as an example?
Dan Matha.
Right, so Dan Matha had, like, the whole vignette treatment on NXT.
That was a bunch of BS, yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. This is a case of art imitating real life here, because you've got all these young trainees, up-and-comers, trying to make a name for themselves in the company, and then the internet darling comes along and takes that opportunity away from them. And that literally happened for Dan Matha on TV when he was making his much-awaited debut.
Nobody was waiting for that.
Well,
nobody was waiting. Maybe his family. Maybe the guys that watch him on the Largo loop, but nobody was waiting for that.
But we were expected to anticipate it, and it happened. And the recently acquired Samoa Joe destroyed him, and he's not been on TV since.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Samoa Joe's great, but for all we know, we're missing something special in Dan Matha. Maybe we're not. We're still doing it. Listen,
I'm sorry. That's funny. I'm sorry. No, this is Dan Matha, but that's hilarious.
so if there's anyone playing Outsider's Edge bingo at home, if you've completed the line with Dan Matha, then you should earn yourself a drink, because I don't think he's been spoken about in any podcast for a long time, probably.
Hey, Outsider's Edge, where you get all the hot stuff.
But I just think that was an art imitating life, and it's great seeing Ricochet's, all your and Undisputed Era guys, EC3. It makes for entertaining TV, and I'm probably shooting myself in the foot because NXT TV is at white hot at the moment, but you've got a lot of people wasting away at the bottom of the rung, so to speak, just now. So I think Juice Robinson, the guys at Keeping It Strong Style, big fans of him. Matt Riddle as well, he's much adored by everyone. But just sort out what's in-house first.
So I'm gonna go. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that it makes sense for WWE to want to sign these people. I think it falls more on the wrestlers themselves whether or not they would want to go back. So, like, if you're Juice Robinson and you were in NXT and you gave it a shot and it didn't work out and you asked for your release and said, hey, I need to go, I need to do something different, and you go to New Japan and you've gotten over pretty huge there, and now you've got one of their top mid-card titles and you're a big established act and blah, 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 do you want to leave and go back to being a less utilized talent? And that's up to you as the individual wrestler, because I mean, everybody can't be a star. You know, we need Mike Kanellis's in the world who were big mid-card acts in their previous federations and come in and be jobbers. We need jobbers.
Well, so I'm gonna go to you, Carl, next. I want to make 2 quick points. I call this the Cody Rhodes conundrum, in that a lot of the times WWE will tell you when they either release you or you ask for your release, go make a name for yourself somewhere else and show us that we were wrong. We will gladly push you accordingly if you show us we made a mistake. And they've done that in quite more than a few situations. So if Juice would have come back now, they're not going to make him be the gatekeeper in NXT. He's definitely going to be somebody that's going to get, I think, a sustained push of some level. And secondly, to kind of go back to the conversation me and Clive had, I want to acknowledge that WWE does 7 hours of new television a week. 3 Raw, 2 SmackDown, 1 205, 1 NXT. Not counting main event, which is taped before Raw. We have NXT UK coming, and then we have to acknowledge that NXT as a entity is a 3-pronged company. It is NXT the brand, which we see every Wednesday. It's NXT the developmental, which is the guys that get signed and learn how to wrestle and ingratiate themselves to the WWE system. And it's NXT the touring entity, because NXT does have as many as 2 or 3 tours going on at different times. So they do have guys like Murphy was killing it on tours before he got an opportunity on 205 Live. He was main eventing. You know? So while these guys might not get the shot, your Dan Mathers of the world, right? Or a guy who I actually like and actually know fairly decently, Brennan Williams, right? Like, these guys aren't getting the opportunities on TV yet, but they will. But they're really getting to hone their craft, right? It's, I think WWE has become such a factory that I think Triple H had to step back for a second. And I'm assuming him in his mind. But these guys need to wrestle 200, 300, 400 matches before you throw them on television, right? Give them some sustained amount of talent if they've never done this before. And most of these guys we're talking about are guys that have never done this before. Brennan got trained at Reality of Wrestling at the same time me and my boy Dre signed up. So, like, and so Brennan doesn't have history. Dan Mather was trained by WWE. So these guys are getting an opportunity to really hone their crafts, experiment with different characters and whatnot, and different gimmicks and different promos and styles and everything before they get pushed to the world. So go ahead, Kyle. Go ahead, Carl. You decayed.
Yeah.
Why don't y'all change your name? Damn it.
I don't know. I'm sorry. Sorry. If I change it to a C, would that help you? I mean, because I'm pretty sure it's sound.
Asshole.
Anyway, no, listen. I think, first of all, no fault here to WWE for trying to go after as many wrestlers and talents as they can. Okay? I mean, any smart business company is going to try and get the best possible talent and find a place for them somewhere. I do think, in terms of, I agree with Kyle's point that it's on the wrestlers, because if you know you're going to a situation where right now Juice Robinson is, for lack of a better term, he's kind of white hot. Like, I mean, you know, he's an IWGP United States champ. I mean, he is big time right now. If he goes to NXT, the reality is he's probably not going to be big time right off the bat. You know what I mean? That will dissipate. So it's on them. And I do think you can somewhat suffer, even though WWE has a lot of television programming, I do think you can suffer from having too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak. You just got so much talent that you just can't find a place for all of them, you know? Because, I mean, who's to say that Juice isn't as good as EC3? And, you know, just start picking and mixing guys. Like, a lot of these guys are on the same talent level. And it's just a matter of who's going to stand out more for your brand, I think. And so sometimes, you know, while Juice may have his place, I mean, are we going to put him at the top of NXT? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, so I see why people who like him may not want to see him make that jump. But ultimately, you can't get mad at WWE for wanting him as a commodity, if that makes sense. It's really just an in-the-middle kind of thing.
I want to open this up to everybody real quick. Just one quick question. Is there anybody who is not wrestling at like currently on the Raw, SmackDown, 205, NXT, or NXT UK roster that needs to be on TV? That you guys think isn't on but should be?
Dan Mather.
Well,
now, do you mean consistently on television?
No, I mean that are on television.
Or just on television in general? Yeah. Because there's the difference. I mean, you can see a guy for a week and then he's gone for a month. Like the Authors of Pain are a perfect example of a tag team that, I mean, should be on. I feel like they should be featured a little bit more than they are. And so far, they really have done diddly poo. You know what I mean?
But that's two different conversations. Being utilized correctly and being utilized at all are two different conversations. But I give you a guy
I think I get what you're saying and I get the difference. But I think that's a hand-in-hand thing. Like, yeah, it's one thing. Yeah, you're on TV. Like, they put jobbers like from local companies on TV. I mean, if Sasha and Bayley last week just beat two nobodies, and that I mean, that could have gone to two women that are already on the roster. You know what I mean? I get why they do it. What I'm saying is, like, they utilize properly and utilize it all do kind of go hand in hand.
They do.
I mean, if you're on TV for 1 week and then you're gone for 3 weeks, we're not remembering you. We're not thinking about you that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the chance is that you will be utilized because at least the audience knows you. Let me give you two examples.
Sure.
Leo Rush and Buddy Murphy.
Okay.
Right? They were two guys that were literally languishing on the tour circuit. And now they've both made huge name for themselves on 205 Live because the opportunity was opened up. There's nobody like that right now. I mean, the Forgotten Sons is a nice little group that's coming up. The former Gunner and Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler. They're like a biker gang group. None of the four, maybe Kyle has heard of them, but none of the rest of you guys have heard of those guys. So is there anybody? Well, Wesley Blake, sure, but you didn't even know who his tag team partner was, right? You didn't know what he was doing. So, and this is no diss to those guys because I'd love for all those guys to be utilized on television. But is there anybody that they're missing on right now? I don't think so. That's signed to them?
I mean, off the top of my head, I would say no, and I think that's a good point. I would also say that if you look at, like someone had mentioned before, I can't remember which one of you it was, sorry, but the way they're expanding right now and trying to hit different markets, I think justifies bringing in as much talent as you possibly can because of the fact that if you are in a completely different market than you normally in, you can rotate guys around. So say if you bring in a Juice Robinson, no, he's not at Full Sail, or no, he's not on the main roster. Maybe he's over in the UK, or maybe he's over somewhere else where they're trying to expand. And that's the beauty of having those UK titles, the North American Championship, things like that, to where you can take all that talent that you've accumulated and really just kind of place them in certain spots. So that's where I'm kind of getting at a little bit, why you can understand why WWE is doing it. And if it's more of a long-term vision, then that's fine. In the short term, it might suck for some people that really like some of these guys. You know what I mean? But if you think long-term, which is hard for us as fans, even me myself sometimes, I'm not just putting it on everybody that has this mindset. But when you're kind of in a short-term mindset in terms of wrestling, you can tend to forget that there's still long-term visions. They're still a business. They still have goals that are 1-year goals, 5-year goals, 10-year goals, things of that matter. So it's just something to think about.
Remember the global localization and the goal of having a performance center in 5 different areas in the country by 2025. So just think about that when you think about the whole talent acquisition thing. But let's finish the night up with this last thing, talking about people who are utilized correctly. The greatest victory in the history of NXT just happened this past Wednesday. The devil incarnate, Tommaso Ciampa, is your new NXT champion. So I'm gonna do a round robin around. Because I know where my outside edge brethren stand on this. Ricky, was this the best championship win in history or the best championship win in history? Now, what did you think, man? What did you think of them giving Ciampa the strap?
Well, first of all, the most surprising and stunning thing about it all was I somehow avoided spoilers for about 2 weeks regarding this match.
Yes, you deserve it. You deserve a round.
I avoided spoilers for about 30 seconds, so good job.
So, yeah. First of all, the match itself was a damn good match. I don't know if they've announced a rematch or anything, because like I said, I've not read a single spoiler at all and what the plans are going into Takeover at Brooklyn. So if one of you want to spoil that for me, you can.
No thanks.
Will that be on next week's Takeover NXT?
We're gonna respect Clive's wishes and stay spoiler free for him.
I'll hit you on WhatsApp, brother. I'll text you.
Yeah, like I love Aleister Black, but giving the strap to Tommaso Ciampa is excellent. The match itself was actually really, really good as well. I kind of have an idea of what they're going to do with Takeover. The way the finish went down with Gargano coming down and ultimately, effectively kind of costing Aleister Black. I have a feeling that they're probably going to either go a number 1 contenders match between Gargano and Black or triple threat. But yeah, Tommaso Ciampa getting the title. Yeah, like you said, it was the greatest thing in NXT history. But yeah, I also think that we probably put the title on him as well, just to sort of give the feud between him and Gargano another little wrinkle. Because if they do go with triple threat, they could have the blow off in the War Games Takeover maybe.
Hell, they could stretch it to Brooklyn 5 in WrestleMania.
Yeah, so yeah, it was. I thought Gargano would cost Ciampa the title. I didn't think Ciampa was going to win, but I'm more than glad that we did put the title on him. I also wonder if they're considering bringing Aleister Black up now to the main roster post SummerSlam, because like you say, what else is there for him to do if he doesn't win the title back, which I don't think he will.
And you know that when people are called up, a lot of the times they finish their last stuff in NXT for another month or two. So it's possible he could get called up and still run through TakeOver War Games.
Yep.
Clive?
I'll be brief and bullet point my thoughts on it. It was fresh. It was good to see Ciampa. I know Gargano came in later, but a match with Ciampa that didn't involve Gargano as his opponent was nice and fresh. It was an inspired idea to swap the titles on TV. The TV doesn't need bolstering in terms of quality and excitement at the moment, but it was still really good. Ciampa's heel work after the fact, when he was literally like beckoning the referee to follow him up the ramp, to raise his arm, pointing at his wrist. That was very small detail, and I noticed that he was just very subtly pointing at his wrist. I loved that. The belt shot was fluffed, and it took me out of it for a bit. And I thought maybe they could have done something a bit different to cause the upset. Because the belt shots in 2018, they don't mean that much, do they? Considering the violence that we see sometimes. So I could have done without the belt shot, but overall, another excellent night for NXT. And as much as of a bastard as he is, I was quite impressed with Ciampa last night.
And can we give a shout out to Drake for that bump he took on the concrete?
Hi.
He took a hell of a bump. We got to forget, Drake Younger was a hell of a deathmatch wrestler. But go ahead, Kyle.
I'm a huge fan of it because, now that Cody's kind of turned face again, sort of, and, no disrespect to Tama Tonga, but Tommaso Ciampa is the best heel in wrestling. I
think he was the best heel in wrestling even when Cody was a heel.
When Cody was a heel, I thought it was at least debatable. It was at least they were close. But now that Cody's a face again, like, Tommaso Ciampa is the best heel in wrestling, and it's not even a competition.
Well, Tama Tonga talks shit about of another veteran, so that's in America. That's some serious heat. So maybe.
Tama Tonga is a badass. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to run into no Tongans in a back alley. Tommaso Ciampa is still the best heel in wrestling, and I'm all about the best heel in wrestling having a title.
Well, when you walk out to no entrance music, that just sort of confirms you are the biggest heel, not just in the company, but in wrestling itself.
Well, and his social media game is so up top.
Did you see the tweet with him and Triple H, and he swapped the faces around?
Yes,
no.
I saw that.
The best tweet, Johnny Gargano sent out a tweet apologizing. And he screenshotted it, put it and said, at Johnny Gargano, thanks, brother. I knew you'd come around. DIY, hashtag DIY for life. It's just
Listen, actually,
dog.
See, here's the thing, and I'm going to jump in now because this is the perfect time to jump in. The best tweet was when he told Aleister Black that he was a transitional champion. That's the best tweet. And this is why Ciampa is the best true heel in all of wrestling. Because in terms of like heel, there's a couple of guys who the crowd love that are also great heels. They don't fucking love Ciampa. He's the best true heel in wrestling, so I want to say that. But the best kind of heels are the guys who always end up being right. And that is exactly what Ciampa is.
Yes.
When he says Aleister Black's a transitional champion, and it fucking happens. He makes it happen. And that's why he's the best, and that's why this is such a perfect move. I'll be honest with you guys. Like, I'm not huge on Aleister Black to begin with. I know a lot of people love him. I'm not a huge fan. He's good, talented, but it's the right move at the right time, in my opinion. Because Black is what Black is, and he doesn't really need the belt that much. You know what I mean? Ciampa, nothing is better than having literally the worst human on the planet is basically the guy you're chasing that Gargano is probably going to be chasing for a while. You know what I mean? Or, he may win the title at the next takeover. I don't know, but that's yet to be seen.
Kyle, when we were watching Tommaso Ciampa in like 08, 09 Ring of Honor with the damn ugly ass
fucking
mohawk.
With the fucking mohawk.
The Sicilian shooter or whatever he was. Sicilian psychopath.
Yeah.
Did you ever think he would be a main event act? Never.
I never thought they'd tell the right story. Like,
I didn't think he had it in him, dog. I didn't think he had it in him.
The big thing is, this is just a great example of the right story. And it was told the right way because they used that ACL injury to, like, perfectly set that whole angle up. And he went away. and then he came back, and Johnny was a bigger star because everybody loved Johnny. Then he beat the dog shit out of Gargano. Then he spat on this man's wedding ring.
And threw it in the crowd. My God. Whoo.
All I know is Johnny better have gone to find that ring because Candice would have whooped his ass. Where the fuck's my ring, bitch?
As Kyle and I have said numerous times, Candice wears the pants in their relationship. That ain't no joke, bro.
There ain't no way Candice let him bring his real ring to that match either.
Candice teamed with famous dick wrestler Joey Ryan. Candice definitely wears the pants.
That's fair, yeah. That's fair.
All right, gents. It's late as hell in Scotland, and I think we've gotten everything we wanted to get in. Before we go, I'll go around the room. Anything else you guys want to say?
No.
I'm glad we've got heel Randy Orton back.
Oh, don't you love the subtleties of wrestling? That taking a wedding ring off, spitting on it, and throwing it in the crowd, or putting your finger through somebody's ear hole, are two of the worst, the most despicable things you can do.
Well, here's what I've said about Randy Orton anyway. I said this the other day. Nobody, like when Randy Orton wants to be the man, when he wants to, and he's motivated, he, in my opinion, will forever be one of the top 5 guys when he wants it.
He's motivated, absolutely.
I mean, and I've always thought that he had it in him to be one of the top wrestlers to ever do it, period. And a lot of people say, well, he's a 14-time champion, so he kind of is. But he's had so many lulls in his progression over the years. You know, he's never consistently always just been incredible. But right now, heel Randy Orton, that's where it's at. That's what you want right now.
Did anybody else find it funny in his promo when he said, I've been here longer than anybody, I set the table for you guys, and then he's feuding with Jeff Hardy, who was there like 5 years before he was?
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny. But, Clive, anything you want to add before we get out of here, man?
No, not in terms of wrestling, like serious content, but it's become a gimmick as of late where I do a wrestling related joke, so I've got one for you.
Do it.
Warning, guys, it's gonna be like hilariously terrible.
So Lance Storm is at a speed dating event, but the speed dating also involves dressing up as Harry Potter characters. So the buzzer goes and he goes to his next table, and before the woman introduces herself, he says, "If I can be serious for a moment."
Okay, so you guys listening at home, Kyle is a huge Harry Potter fan, so he is in tears right now.
I don't want to offend Kyle here, but I have never watched a single bit of Harry Potter before.
Oh no, he's not offended because I've told him I don't either.
You don't have to watch. I'm currently reading the books for the 4th time.
I was about to say, before you said 4th time, I was going to say, you mean rereading, nerd. That's what I was going to say. That's all right. You're good.
Speaking of books.
You don't have to watch shit. Like, you know, the movies are great. Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe are wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But, like, read the fucking books.
Yep.
Speaking of books, August 1st, the Doc Chad Matthews brand new book will be out for everybody. The greatest matches and rivalries of the WrestleMania era. I was given an advance copy. I will be reviewing it, and we will have Big Homie on the show next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Chad is a very elusive man to get. He's a real life doctor.
Yes, he
like
is.
He's not a doctor for play. He's a doctor for real. But yeah, Chad hit me up and said he wanted to come on. That's my boy. Me and him are real good friends. Been trying to get on for a minute, so we will have him. And so you guys listen, look out for that. We're super hyped about that. And Chad and I are probably going to argue the whole hour and a half.
No, I'll step in. Don't worry. I'll step in.
That's the funnest part.
Yeah, that me and Chad disagree on everything, and afterwards it's like, hey, man, so you want to go get a beer?
Carl and I will officiate from the sidelines.
Beautiful. Because somebody's going to have to. I will not mediate that episode.
I probably won't end up officiating very well.
You're just going to... Carl is Carl.
I'll be teacher Kyle, and I'll mediate the conflicts.
All right, Ricky, Clive, tell them where they can find you.
I'll leave that to you, Clive. That's yours.
That's when I usually fall apart, but I'll give
That's
it a
fine.
shot.
That's the best part of the show.
Well, I'll leave the plugging of the overall social superplex podcast network to Rance, but you can find Ricky and I on Twitter and Facebook at Ricky and Clive, not an ampersand, just the AND and Ricky and Clive Wrestling Show on Instagram. I also do the 205 live columns for socialsuplex.com. You can find them on Lords of Pain's main page as well. There is more coffee in my system right now than the whole of Colombia. So that's all I've got to add.
Ricky, before you get out of here, you want to say something to the people?
No, we just appreciate you having us on. And if you want to see weekly selfies of myself, you can do. You can find me on Facebook. I post regular selfies, and that's all I post.
I had to ask. Kyle, go ahead, man. Tell them where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Dr. S'mores. That's capital D, little R, big S, MORES.
Carl?
Yeah, you guys, first of all, I do want to say I'm really glad we finally were able to get Ricky and Clive. I know we've talked about it like 1,000 times. So sorry I'm not very reliable, but here we are.
I only had to get on the show like 45 times before you got on with me.
Yeah, so that's my bad, but as our truth might say, that's my bad. But we did it, so I'm happy for that. Kyle, it's cool to finally get a chance to have you on and speak to you as well. But you guys, you can find me on Twitter at OutsiderKervin, KERVIN. That's my only social media. No Instagram, no Facebook, none of that shit. So that's where you'll find me, shooting out my bad takes all day long.
Got any columns coming up?
Yeah, I'm working on a little something here for the chair shot. Been working for a while now. At least 2 or 3 months now I've been working on this specific column. I have a title, and get ready. It's coming soon, maybe by Christmas.
2020.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think Dan Matha will be the champion before your column comes.
Oh, man. So there's a joke. Me, Ricky, and Clive have a group message, and the picture of it is Kona Reeves because that's Clive's favorite wrestler. We're going to have to change this damn method now.
Hashtag give Matha a chance.
Give Matha a chance. You can find me at It's Ray Cash, REY as in Mysterio, CASH as in dollars. You can follow the show where we never tweet at, but promise we will eventually, at Outsiders Edge SS. Social Suplex Podcast Network, of course, is where you can find all of our stuff. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, Podcast Addict, everything. You can also follow that at Social Suplex on Twitter. Ricky and Clive, of course, said you can follow them at Ricky and Clive. They have one of the most fun shows on the network. Please give them a listen. One Nation Radio is the flagship with Rich Lauder. You can follow that at One Nation Radio. Keeping It Strong Style is our New Japan show with Jeremy and Josh. Follow them at KI Strong Style. And we have our specific indie show for you guys who love indie wrestling with James and Chris. That is Grown Men Watch This Shit. You can follow that at Grown Men Pod. I write for the Chair Shot. I am in the process myself of writing a column. I've been on hiatus for about a month, but I'll be back definitely soon. Probably sometime this weekend with a new column, so be looking out for that. But other than that, man, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting. Big show next week, so give that a listen. And anything you want to say before we go, guys?
Love you guys.
Nope.
As Carl would like me to say, don't forget that we all 5 of us are trying our best and we are following our dreams. So if you did not like the show, you have to respect that we tried. Thanks for listening.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Night night.